political landscape is so equally divided? What factors do you think cause it to be so equally divided?
We've become tribal, and we think of our identity as being attached to a certain group of people, which is tribalism. So, if you're liberal, then anything that the right says is completely wrong and immoral and evil, and vice versa. And there's fewer people out there that really look at things with an open mind and logic, and understand that we've gotten so far away from being able to still have debate and conversation with people with different viewpoints and it not become combative. It's like, okay, you may not be wrong. I just want to understand your perspective because I haven't walked a mile in your shoes. I haven't been brought up the way that you have. We have different cultures. We have, different religions. And so maybe your reality is your reality because of your perspective. So I would like to have a conversation to better understand your perspective. And so we don't ask enough questions. We do more shouting than we do anything else. And here's the other thing. Getting people to fight amongst each other, one could argue is a distraction of what's really going on. Here we are is fighting over two parties, Republican versus Democrats. When in my opinion, government's the problem. I don't care what team you're on, government's the problem. It has become, they are oppressing their own people. They are put in power, stay in power far too long, become filthy rich to really legislate things that prop them up or the companies that they are a part of. And they are there to work for us. And it's no different than, let's say you got pulled over by a cop. And I'm all for being respectful in all situations you get pulled over by a cop. But if you feel like your rights have been violated for whatever reason, let's say you're pulled over for no reason. You weren't actually speeding. You didn't have a tail light out. You just pulled over because you look suspicious. I think it's on us as citizens to question that. Do you suspect me of committing a crime? And I think that relates to our government. They have gotten so much power that they have gotten out of being accustomed to the citizens actually questioning them and understanding why they're really there. They are there in a servitude position. They are there to serve. It is community service. That is that position. That is public office. You are there as a representative of your people. And if you no longer serve your people, then you need to be ousted. And I don't mean violently or with hostility. I just mean they need to go. And that's just not the way our government works anymore. And I think we need to get back to our roots. And until we do, we're going to continue to have these problems. But you're right, it has grown more and more and more. Every election, it has become this side versus this side. And when is the last time we really saw it like this? 1864. Well, what happened in 1864? Civil War. We had families fighting each other over different viewpoints. I don't know if that's what they want to happen, but I know that if we all came together and unified under a common goal, that even if we have different theologies and different ideologies of what government should do, I think we all have some form of common ground that government is there to serve us. And we pay taxes for this, right? Lots of taxes. They get trillions of dollars that they have mismanaged for decades, if not a century, of our money. We need to hold them accountable, and it needs to get back to the point where you are there to serve what we want you to do. You are a representative of the people. You are not a monarch. You are not a dictator. And although we call ourselves a constitutional republic or democratic republic, it is further and further from that every single day. And if they can just get people fighting amongst themselves, then we are distracted of understanding who, not necessarily the enemy, but what the real problem is that we've elected people that should not be in office. I mean, how out of 340 million people do we come down to two choices, Joe Biden and Donald Trump? You mean to tell me out of 340 million people, these are the most highly qualified people to run the greatest country that's ever been? Hell no, not even close. And look, don't get me wrong. I'm not a Joe Biden fan, but I'm not necessarily on the Trump bandwagon either. But if you give me only those two choices, which is all I really have, because I don't really think that RFK Jr. is a choice. I think that's just taking votes away from one party or the other. It's not a realistic thing that he's going to become president. Yeah, I'm going to go for Trump because that's the lesser of two evils. But how do we have this many people, this much talent, this much innovation, and the brightest minds in the entire world, and we have filtered it down to these are our two best options? Can you tell me that something's not rigged in that equation?
You touched on it earlier, but how can we bridge the two gaps? And how can we come together with differing viewpoints? What's a healthy way that people with opposite and opposing viewpoints can work together and communicate?
Stop shouting, ask questions, find common ground. So you see the protests that are erupting. All they're doing is just shouting at each other. If you and I just started shouting at each other, me for one, I can't multitask. I have no idea what you're saying. I only know what I am yelling at you. And in fact, if you're yelling back, I get so distracted that I don't even know what to say because I'm trying to hear what you're saying at the same time I'm shouting. It's not productive. So slow down, listen, ask questions, gain perspective, and find common ground, because we all have common ground. You know, I don't care if you immigrated from this country and you've assimilated to become an American, that's our common ground. We are both Americans. I don't care the color of your skin, where you came from, nothing. We're Americans. And both of us should be having that flag draped on our back, not some other country's flag, whether it's Israel's or Palestine. It has no place. I'm sorry. Now we can, have viewpoints that as Americans, if you want to support them, you support them. That's fine. That's your right. You can say that. But the flag is not being flown in this country or on any one of our buildings. We only support one country. That is our common ground. That is the American way. That's our common ground. We are in this together to build the greatest nation and sustain the greatest nation that's ever been. So let's work from there. Now let's talk about our differences. Let me understand your perspective and I can tell you my perspective. And I promise you, if you do it that way, you'll find even more common ground. It's like, you know what? I get it. Now I get where you're coming from. Now let's think of how I get what I want, but you can also get what you want, because I still think that your way and what you want is still moral and has integrity. But we've gotten to the point where it's my way or the highway. I'm the only one that's right. This is my reality. This is my truth. And I don't have an open mind to listen to your reality or your truth or your perspective.
I was going to say I got a
gay, fat, black friend that's liberal. We couldn't be further different, but we have common ground. We watch UFC together, so we'll talk about UFC. We talk about wrestling. He watches more wrestling than I do. He's a Baltimore Ravens fan. I'm obviously a Titans fan, so we argue about that. These are more productive things. Yes, we can talk about, things that are but he and I will debate about Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, but we do so respectfully because we're still friends, and we couldn't be any more different.